UIW. I see the familiar faces have made it back for the final stretch. And my man, you wore the concert tee at the concert. Yes, that's what I appreciate it. So thank you for doing that. So we are going to close off this Hispanic Heritage Symposium with an all-star cast here at UIW. These are people that are part of the fabric of what you see on the day-to-day, digitally, on the ground, for support services, everything. So you're truly appreciated. I can't wait for them to hear from you. Who will be moderating is going to be a very special woman. I'm going to go ahead and do this nice introduction. And so please join me in welcoming Ms. Victoria Shipley as the Academic Affairs Director of Operations and Planning and the Chair of the Hispanic Serving Institutions Steering Committee. Victoria's expertise in serving the Hispanic community and her passion for empowering all students make her a valuable asset to UIW. Her insights and commitment to creating a more inclusive future will undoubtedly inspire us all, me being one of them. So thank you. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Well, welcome to our panel discussion on Hispanic heritage and shaping our future. It's a panel discussion on the Hispanic culture and the UIW community. So thank you, Theo, for the introduction. Victoria Shipley, Director of Operations and Planning. And I just want to thank you all for coming today. We are gathered here to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month and the cultural contributions of the Hispanic community. And so our panel today has a wide variety of perceptions and experiences in the UIW community. And so we're going to learn a little bit about how we practice our Hispanic heritage at UIW. So first, I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves. So if you will please tell me your name, your title, a little bit about your role, and how long you've been at UIW.
Thanks, Victoria. The more I get to know Victoria, the more things I am shanghaied into doing. I prefer to stay in my office as much as I can because I do a lot around here that all of y'all are pretty aware of. I am the Associate Vice President of Communications and Brand Marketing for the university. I lead a team of 9 communication professionals. Michelle is one of them that do everything on this campus, from digital marketing that you see on the screens all over campus to the commercials that you see on TV when you're watching your shows. We produce all the digital billboards and the static billboards all over town, as well as manage crisis communication and the daily news that we get and the Friday newsletter that goes out. We also deal with a lot of things that people are not really aware of. We run incident command at the university. Security is one of our very top priorities. We work very closely with the police department and with emergency management here on campus. So the one thing that you all see probably every single day, and you have no idea who is in charge of that, is the sky bridge that says UIW Cardinals. My team is responsible for that. So when there are missing cups, we have to go put cups back on there. When students are up to shenanigans and move the cups around, we got to go up there and move them back. So we run from the very easy things of dealing with that to all the way to crisis intervention for the university. I have been here in a variety of roles, always within PR, marketing, communications. I started as associate director in 2008 and have risen through to now associate vice president, and I will be here 17 years in January.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Casares Vasquez. I've been part of UIW, believe it or not, since 1998. That's when I first attended as an undergraduate student, specifically completing my bachelor's degree, went out and worked for many years and decided to come back, what we call it, the nest home. Started working here, and as a student, pursued my master's degree. Completed that in 2020, and now I'm working on my PhD, and I'm currently completed all my coursework, so my qualification course right now for candidacy. So I've been as a student through the multi-levels of what it's like to be undergrad and a graduate student, doctoral student, And also my daughter comes here. She's earning her bachelor's degree in art therapy, and she's going to be completing within this year her degree. So kind of legacy of a family in general. And my mom retired from here after 17 years. So, and what else?
I got one.
Okay.
My name is Gloria Ramos Cortez, and I am the director for the University Advising Center under Student Services, under Student Success Division with Dr. Jimenez. I have been here for about 6 years, but in higher ed for about 15. And before I started my work in higher ed, I completed my master's degree in business. And I just knew I was going to have my business one day and, just do my own thing and have my own organization. But once I got into, digging in with students and I fell in love with higher ed. And so that's why I stuck around and wanted to be able to help students navigate through their journeys through higher ed and to complete their degrees. My daughter is a Cardinal. She's a sophomore. I'm super proud of her. But I just knew one day this would be home too. I always had an affinity for a UIW ever since I was going through Catholic high school, and this was that beacon on the hill. And so I love being here, and I'm honored to be up here with these wonderful ladies.
So my name is Ann Islas. I am actually perspective, I guess, of the alumni, the UIW Alumni Board. And I've been in higher ed for about 18 years, but not necessarily working here at UIW. I did come to UIW for my bachelor's and my master's degree. And I haven't gotten my official go, but starting next week, I will be actually working for the university now, which was always my goal as I was traveling through my career path. So hopefully I'll get that official letter soon. But so that's kind of my perspective of how I got to UIW, and my partner's a UIW grad, and so is my sister-in-law. She's currently here, so lots of UIW running through us.
Amazing. Well, Anne, welcome back to the nest again then. Okay, so my first question is because we want to have different perspectives. So this is for Michelle and Anne specifically. What challenges or opportunities have you encountered as a Hispanic student?
Okay, there's a couple of challenges that I've been thinking about. I think first one is understanding and learning through my doctoral program that there's only 1% of Hispanics that earn a PhD. And so when I came to that realization, it made me really think about how I want to continue my education and be a role model for others and support other students that want to continue their education. So that's been really important for me and my family, really think about my family, my community, to represent my community and especially represent UIW as I go to international conferences, national conferences. So breaking that barrier is really important to bring others along as well. So I've been thinking about that and what I can do in the future. Another challenge can be financial hardships and burdens. So when it comes to maybe having more opportunities for scholarships or stipends or research grants or graduate assistant opportunities for students, that'd be vital, I think, to help others continue the path that want to continue their academic journey. And those are the two big ones that I think right now for me that were challenging and still working to overcome.
For me, it's been kind of finding my voice as I've gone along, because I've always been quieter, and my mom was kind of like, well, you have to kind of be a little more demure, and like that's how you grew up, like you didn't necessarily make waves, but I've had to kind of just learn to advocate for myself and learn to advocate for those with me coming through, or even in the professional world, advocating for my teams, especially those that are Hispanic, because a lot of times we get a little bit left behind compared to our peers. So just, yeah, like I said, finding my voice and knowing that it's okay to speak up. You can still be respectful, but you can definitely advocate for yourself at the same time.
So my next question is for all of you. How do you handle or overcome stereotypes or prejudices you face as a Hispanic person? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, so for me, The stereotypes aren't necessarily outside of our Hispanic culture. A lot of times I find myself with the stereotype of I'm not really like a true Hispanic because I grew up in a home where Spanish wasn't spoken and we didn't really have like a lot of Hispanic traditions. And so as I started coming into spaces where there were more Hispanic people around me, they began to question just how Hispanic are you then if you don't speak Spanish? But, you know, my parents were kind of ostracized when they were in school. So it wasn't something they grew up or they didn't want that for their children. And so sometimes I think as Hispanics, we have to fight our own stereotyping and understand like we're all still part of the same group and others don't see the difference between what they call a no sabo kid and somebody who's like first gen or came from a first gen family. They still just see a Hispanic representation. So we need to learn to come together, I think, and not be fighting each other in that way or even just stereotyping each other. So that's more my perspective in stereotyping because I haven't necessarily had to face it in any other area.
I think for me, it was, I did not grow up feeling more or less Hispanic or Mexican. I grew up in San Antonio. I went to Catholic school. I went to Carnarvon High School. When I went to UT, that's when I realized, oh, not everybody is Mexican. Because until I was probably in middle school, everybody was Hispanic, went to Catholic school, or white, went to Catholic school, went to church, and we all were pretty much at the same foundation. When I went to UT, I was definitely a minority, and that was hard because I gravitated to folks who seemed more like me, but who were not Hispanic. So some of my my very, very close best friends from college are not Hispanic. So that was a very interesting time as a young woman at UT as a journalist, but it became very apparent that I was Hispanic and sought after when I was in my junior year, because I was in a broadcast sequence. And if you spoke Spanish and if you looked Hispanic, you could get a job anywhere. Everybody wanted you. And at UT, everyone comes to court you. They want you to come and work for them. And so I literally could have gone anywhere I wanted. At the time, CNN was just starting. Yes, I am that old. CNN was just starting, and they were hiring students from all over the country to come and work at CNN. But according to my very good friends who are not Hispanic, I did a very Mexican girl thing, and I got married, and I came home. But I did not have a baby, and I did not get married because I was pregnant, which was a very non-Hispanic girl thing to do. So I started working. We worked here for 2 years, went to Houston for 12 years, worked for the Fox owned and operated station in Houston, and then made an emotional move to come back to San Antonio after we lost my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and we came back to San Antonio. But various parts of my career have had weird things where people say, I didn't know you were Mexican. I'm like, what does that mean? And one of my very best friends said, what does it feel like to be Mexican? And I'm like, Betsy, what does it feel like to be white? I don't know what you're asking me. I remember going on a trip because I was part of a leadership team at the station that I worked at. And Rupert Murdoch was buying stations all over the country. And so depending on where we were located, and I was in Houston, depended on the stations that we went to train to become Fox stations. This was before Fox News. So this was more the entertainment division and the television stations. And I remember going to Boston, and the first person I met at the station really was like shocked because I was brown hair, brown eyed, brown skin. And she said, I had no idea you were Mexican. You don't sound Mexican. I'm like, what does that Mexican sound like? And I don't know if it's because I was trained as a journalist and maybe you lose some of that, which I've probably now been back for 20 years. It's all back. But those were the kinds of questions that I was asked pretty frequently. And I guess my response and then my initial reaction, kind of people were immediately understood that they probably shouldn't have asked me that. Because I'm not an introvert, it made people very uncomfortable for me to reply in the way that I did. But Betsy is still one of my very, very best friends. She was in my wedding. She visits all the time. She actually married a guy who she's no longer married to, but married a guy who was Mexican from the courts in Corpus Christi. And that was probably the hardest thing her parents had to accept. So, and actually they're divorced mostly because of him, because she's my best friend. So of course it's not her fault. But yeah, so through the years, it has been very interesting to go places to shop and people wondering if you have the money to buy that. To be traveling and get that question from people who you've been talking on the phone with, right? Because this was before Zoom, this was before Teams. You just talk to people. So when they saw you, they were shocked. And literally, words came out of their mouth, I think, before they really thought what they were asking. So it's been interesting. But I think my response has always made people more aware of not just asking me that question, but just asking that question in general. And it's also how I have really raised my kids. It's not about, what you look like or what you do. It's really how you treat people and how, you don't treat people any differently than you would want to be treated. It's all about the kindness and about our social Christian Catholic justice. And it really is embracing who we are, accepting who we are, but understanding that not everybody gets that.
I just wanted to maybe build off some of that too, is I think that a lot of times it comes through as microaggressions more so than just something blatant and outward, although that can happen too. But I think it's fair to go ahead and call it out if it's in a kind way, just to say, hey, that didn't sit well, in order to say, let's build a bridge here. Maybe they weren't aware of how that was going to be offensive. It was micro offensive, maybe, they weren't sure that it was going to land in a negative way with you or with the person. And so I think that just saying, hey, let's maybe talk about this. It came in sideways, right? And to build awareness. And I think that that's where helping to educate and find more common ground would be helpful.
And just to share a little bit more off of what you're saying, as a student, I mean, I've lived here all my life. I've worked here in a professional career for 20 years. We're a very Hispanic community. A lot of people I've worked with are Hispanic, among others. And so this is normal to me, right? To interact and understand the culture of who I am and working with others. But it wasn't until more recently, as I've been able to have the great opportunity to do some international traveling through study type abroad opportunities, where I started to recognize that there wasn't maybe a lot of people that look like me going to international conferences and working on research perspectives as far as and getting to work with other academia, but we all could relate because of shared values and shared stories that we shared about ourselves and why we were pursuing our education. And that's where we found the commonality to be able to work together and collaborate, which has been like really amazing. So having those opportunities for students to be able to work with others outside the community is, I think, going to be vital as well. So it's been really helpful for me as a Hispanic student.
And I've had similar experiences like you have. I'm not introverted at all either. And so being at certain tables, fortunately, it was a table where we could have a discussion where I have had people say, oh, I know you're Mexican, but you're not Mexican. I'm like, well, what does that mean? So at that time, we were able to have a discussion, but had it been in a different circle or a different circumstance, it could have gone very differently. So I can definitely identify with some of that. So my next question is, how do you balance or integrate your Hispanic heritage in your role here at UIW?
Well, I think it's very important here for me as a Hispanic female, now an associate vice president, to really be a role model for young women and for my own daughters to understand that we are not limited because of our color or because of anything. I mean, we can rise to the level that we aspire to be. I had a TV show for a while. I was a reporter for a while. I did a lot of things that young Mexican girls from San Antonio who were born in 1963 didn't do. But I was raised in a family of very strong women, not very well-educated women, but who knew that education was important and was the key to moving up. So literally in one generation, my parents, neither one graduated from high school. All of their children graduated from high school. 3 of us graduated from college. My children, 2 of them have master's degrees. And I think that that's important for people to understand. I have had a lot of great mentors here at UIW, both Hispanic and not Hispanic. And I really feel the importance of paying that forward. Many of the folks on my team are female and many have children. And sometimes I came from corporate, but I don't really have that corporate mentality about you have to be at work from this time to this time. You can't care about anything that's going on in your personal life. You've got to live it, breathe it, be it, and be here. I don't do that. People cannot work effectively if they have something going on that they cannot deal with sitting here. So my whole philosophy is family first. You go do your family, get your things done, do whatever you need to do, and then you come back to your UIW family and we will take care of each other. We have each other's back and we will do what we have to do to get things done. And I think that that works very well for us. I have a very high achieving team. We do a lot of work for only 9 people. And the president is frequently coming to me saying, thank you and great job. And I think that that says a lot for the female. All 8 of the 9 are female. I have 1 male employee, but he also has to do family things because his wife is a very high-level nurse with UT Health. So he also has to go take kids to the doctor or feed a dog or do something and then come back because we have a board meeting at night or we have to cover an event or one of the newsletters. So I think that that has been very important, just showing empathy and just trying to be a role model and a good mentor for the women that work in my office, for the students that work in my office, and for those, well, not just females, but mostly the females that I work with in my division. It's okay if we miss putting up a billboard by a couple of hours or a day. We don't do brain surgery, right? People are not going to die if the newsletter goes out at 10:30 instead of 10 o'clock. Oops, because you had to do something else, or I just don't, it's okay, Michelle. I just don't want people like overwhelming themselves by something that we can control. It's fine. It can wait a minute. And maybe it's because I've gotten older and I've gotten over my type A, like Tasmanian devil personality. But I really feel like it's important with the young team that I have, with the young work studies that I have, to be a good role model and to put my best foot forward for them and to be there to answer questions or to help them through crisis, whether it's a personal crisis or a work crisis. So I just always try to do the best that I can for the people that I'm around.
I could share next. So I wanted to be part of our Hispanic community in the sense of joining the HSI initiatives, the Hispanic Serving Student Initiative, also joining the Hispanic Heritage Month. So we work with the to support upcoming events for the month currently that you're seeing right and here right now. So as a student, I'm just being really aware of my identity and who I am. And that's really, really important in the program that I'm in. We constantly are reflecting on who are we, who is us as an identity, because eventually as future researchers, we're going to go out and work with the community. So we have to know who we are first before we go out there and work with others. So that's been ingrained in me for 4 years also. So it's just really important for me to understand where I come from. And a study abroad trip that I actually did with the Etling Center going to Mexico really opened my eyes a lot because I had family that came from Mexico and I had never really been in Mexico before. So that was the opportunities as a student was really, really important and vital to my transformation as well. Sure.
I was thinking about this, and I'm not quite sure I know how to disconnect with it. But I've been encouraged ever since I was a young girl to be proud of it because my family too came from the suppression of don't speak Spanish and got reprimanded for bringing, tacos for lunch and things like that. So my grandparents were very strong to encourage me to be sure to be proud. As I got into higher ed, I was lucky enough to have some professors who would tell me, be loud and proud. And as I started to work with an initiative with other Latinas for Latina equal pay, a lot of the comparisons come through with our white male colleagues. And he was one of my professors through the master's program, Dr. Richard Coleman. And he told me, hey, as a white male, I want you to be loud and proud and make sure that you bring this along with you and encourage other young Latinos as well. And so that meant a whole lot to me. So hearing it from my family and then hearing it from, people who are supportive of it as well, outside of that, my heritage was important to me. So I try to do the same here with my students, and I have a whole bunch of sugar skulls and calaveras all around the office, which is cool. I've had a couple of students who brought a couple to me because they thought that it was cool. They liked it, wanted to be part of the collection. And so I just think it's important to not to have to apologize, right, for who we are. And then again, going back to just trying to build a common ground because we do have more in common than not.
So for me, it's just showing up in general, joining the Alumni Association, being on the board, taking leadership roles where you can, being part of, I was part of the Latina mentorship program at one point. So just finding places within UIW community where I can either impart knowledge, be part of gaining more knowledge, and just showing up so that others see the representation there. Other young women see that, oh, we have these opportunities and we can be in these spaces. So for me, that's the most important thing, is just joining where you can.
Okay, ladies, well, while listening to you talk, I have a question that just popped in my head. So it's not on the list that I gave you. So I'm about to ask something you're not fully prepared for. But in listening to you talk, we all have higher education. And recently, Student Success invited Dr. Gina Garcia to UIW, and I had a conversation with her about higher education and how far should I go, how far is necessary, because I was being told, well, I mean, depends on what you want to do, whether or not higher education is important. But after talking with her, she said, no, it is very important, especially for people that look like us. So I would like to get maybe your input on how higher education has helped you elevate to the next level.
Well, in order to do the job that I wanted to have in the first place, which was to have a career in journalism, I had to have a degree. I do not have a master's degree because my job at the time didn't require it. And being in higher education was never an aspiration. It's just something that occurred through things that happened in my career. But it is weird to think about the such low numbers of people, because we work with everybody who has a degree, who has a terminal degree. And so we don't think about it until I'm in certain situations where either people have only high school or some college. And then you realize how important it is for us to really be proud of the fact that we had people push us to go to college so that we could then be good mentors to the others. I think that sometimes we all have that imposter syndrome, you know, like we're at a place, maybe we don't belong at this table, but I have something to say.
Made for us.
Or the table's not made for us, or like that whole thing with like, it's a DEI hire. What? There's just, it's just so insane, the things that people think is okay to say to us. And sometimes you're in a position to be able to say something back, and sometimes you're not. But it prepares you for the next time. But I think that being here at Incarnate Word has taught me so much about being a role model for other people and for my own children. And now I have a granddaughter and a granddaughter to be in December. And so it's just, you know, giving them that feeling of self, you know, whether being a good person is the most important. People always ask me, why do you send your kids to Catholic school? They can go to school anywhere. But it was important for me, for my kids to be well educated, but also to be good Catholics. And now that they're adults, they decide if they want to go to church or not. But thankfully, my daughter has made it important for her daughter, who's 3, to go to church on Sunday and to start having that foundation without me reminding her like, hey, mass is at 10 o'clock, mass at 10 o'clock. Because I know that when I graduated from college and I came home, we got married, we would start getting phone calls from both of our moms at whatever time, you know, mass is at 10, mass is at 11, mass at 5:30, the last one, okay, you go to St. Mary's at 8 o'clock. And it's just, you know, parents just wanting to do the best for us, you know, but it's really been a blessing to work here and to be around so many well-educated people who can help us just understand and grasp concepts that we can then take out into the community that we live or that we, you know, have friends in, and to help inspire those folks who don't have the blessing of being in a community like this, where we all feel very comfortable with each other and with talking about things with one another. And, you know, maybe I feel more comfortable just talking in my team than I do talking at the President's Advisory Committee. But nevertheless, my team does give me really good insight into things that should be brought up at a higher level. And I'm happy to be able to do that for them.
I'm thinking about the different reasons why I got each of my degrees. So when I was very young, my grandfather was like my father figure because I didn't have a father in my life. So my mother was a single parent, and he instilled in me very early on that education was important. I don't want to cry right now, but you know, I think about he's the reason that I decided to come to UIW. And my mom did bring me here when I was a very young child for Light the Way. So that was my first impression of imprint of UIW, was seeing the Christmas lights. So UIW had a special place for me, and I just knew I wanted to come here. When I was here as an undergrad, I had a daughter, and I was halfway through my bachelor's degree. And it was very challenging. At that time, I became a single parent, and I did have to work 2 jobs and go to school full time, and I managed to finish in 4 years. So I think about that determination I had, and I really think a lot of it came from my grandfather, which was a veteran at the time and in the military, very influential in my life and continue my education. And I really wanted to make him proud. So I did finish in time, and ended up getting married and going out and working for many years. I think there is a point that happens, and I don't know, maybe in your 30s, where if you're not truly satisfied career-wise, which at the time I had a position and it was okay, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And I wanted to make a change in my life for myself. And so when I decided to come work at UIW, I decided to get my master's, and I just learned so much more. It really helped me elevate myself and professional development of like understanding work culture and understanding organizational leadership. So those classes did help me transform me when it came to the professional side. So that was really important for me. But my doctoral degree, my PhD, is more service driven. I had a really significant critical challenge in my life because my son was born premature. And I was trying to navigate the healthcare system, the education system. So the PhD is really a research personal journey of me trying to understand how to work with the parents of children with disabilities, how to navigate systems, and how to work as a community together for social change and social justice issues and policy change. So each of my degrees have been for different reasons. And just to share, I never saw myself as a role model for many years. I always thought, Margaret's one of my role models, but I have several. And but I never saw myself as a role model until the last 4 years as I was continuing my classes in my doctoral program. And I would hear people say, hey, I'm going back to school because of you. I'm going back. I want to continue my education. I want to change my careers. I see what you're doing. And you don't realize how you're inspiring others because you don't see it, but they see you and they see you working hard. And so when I hear people say that, and I've actually been able to encourage people here, hey, are you going to work in your master's? Are you going to get your bachelor's degree that you just started? And they start attending classes. And so I think we can all inspire others through the work we're doing. And that's what I try to do.
Well, that's what I would like to, I guess, continue talking about, right? It is that inspiring others. My reason for being here was to get my degree, go start my own company, my own thing, like I said earlier, and, you know, be done with studying and higher ed in general. But now, seeing that the impact that is made by higher ed, it is inspiring. And so I also see that when I have those students coming in on the opposite side of my desk and they're, you know, unsure, not knowing if they're going to finish or not, there's life coming at them and letting them know, I did it, right? I did it. You can do it. I did it. I had 2 kids when I did it. I was non-traditional, right? You can definitely do it, right? And just to kind of help them realize that life isn't going to stop coming at you. Make sure that you just hold on tight and keep going. And so for me, I feel like continuing education, I've been on the fence, that maybe it would be a tool to help broaden the impact that I could possibly have on those students, because that's why I've stayed, and it's become a personal mission now. And so, yeah, that's it.
And for me, I think that I advocate higher ed for everybody. So even if it's just getting your first degree, like that's an amazing boost just for your own morale as you go through life and your profession, because you have those credentials. And especially, I mean, even for me, like sometimes that's my own pep talk to myself sometimes when I'm like, when I was feeling where I'm not quite where I want to be professionally, or I'm feeling kind of down sometimes that, you know, oh, I see this person and they're a little bit higher than me, higher up or moving in a different direction. And I have to stop and I tell myself, girl, you are part of this tiny percentage of female Latinas who have a master's degree. Like, you're doing good. Keep going to where you want to be. Just like, remember that you are, you know, pretty badass just for that alone. And so I think it's good for others to have that ability as well. Just like I said, even having your bachelor's, you can give yourself that own pep talk that I sit here among, you know, above these other levels of people. I did that accomplishment myself. So for me, that's why higher ed is just important, because it gives you that confidence boost that you need sometimes to keep going and push professionally.
And the reason why I ask is because you see today in modern culture, they're pushing that, oh, higher education is not that important. It's not worth it. It's not, you hear all of these different things. So it's really important for us to go out and be an example to other people and show them.
Divertidísimo.
Okay.
And to kind of build on that too, even like technical degrees are a great accomplishment, because we need those technical skills. And again, that's a confidence boost too. Like, especially these Latino girls or females in general who are doing like auto mechanics and things like that they weren't doing before. It's great.
Absolutely.
Can
Okay.
I say something?
Sure.
So I pulled up some numbers before leaving from a presentation about a year or so ago. And in Texas, it's 40% Hispanic, but only about 26% hold a degree or a certificate. And in San Antonio, we're 65% Hispanic. I don't have the number of the percentage of how many hold a degree. But from 2010 to 2020, Hispanic growth, it was 23% increase. And so we were the fastest growing overall. And so one of the other key points was, it kind of blew my mind, right? The Latina population grew 7 times faster than the non-Latina females, and that was 93% growth. So come by 2050, there's gonna be, we will be so 2050 Latino workers in Texas will outnumber our Anglo colleagues by 3 to 1. And so considering the fact that we have 1% of Latinos hold doctoral professional degrees, and then 5% hold master's degrees, yeah, I'd say that those numbers need to be bumped up. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting too, the things that we hear from our parents. I remember being a young mom in Houston and hearing from people that we hung around with, how they never saw my daughter in the same outfit twice. And they kept making comments about the cars that we drove or that we had a nanny. I worked in media. My husband was a hotel vice president. We were not home for, 8 to 5 daycare didn't work for us. So everybody I knew had a nanny, cost the same amount as putting your kid in daycare, but they didn't get sick every other week. And so I just remember constantly hearing these things over and over, like, I can't believe you have an expensive purse, or you have a nice car, or you have a nanny. Your kid has too many nice clothes. And I came home one day and my father's like, what is wrong with you? And I said, oh my God. Okay. So I told him this whole thing and he goes, that should not make you feel bad. He goes, because do you know how hard I worked as a construction worker at the top of the hemisphere, at the top of the tower, on top of this building, on that building, working hard, putting bricks so that you can have the life that you have? He goes, no, you be proud of the fact that you had parents that worked that hard so that Adriana can have a different dress every day. And you know what? It's none of their business. And I was like, I went back like, okay, my dad said, but it really, I didn't think of it that way, that how hard my parents worked so that we could have what we had, and how hard that we have worked to make sure that my children and my grandchildren have it a little bit better than us. I had a great life. I honestly did not even know we were poor till my mom died. I was 35. And I was like, wait, what? We were poor? And my brother's like, this is the thing of being the 5th of 6 kids. You had no idea the life of the top 4. But, I had a really good life. I did not know a lot of things. And as I've grown up, I've learned a lot of stuff about my family and all the things that we've done. And it's just so important to remember to pay it forward because of all the work that our parents did on our behalf.
So going off of that and going off of some of the numbers that we went to and wanting them to increase, it leads right to my last question, which if you can quickly tell me, what goals or aspirations do you have for the Hispanic community at UIW and beyond?
I love that we are doing so much more now than we did when I first got here.
Yeah.
Just having a committee, the t-shirts, I think a lot of us have them. I was going to show it. Like take these beautiful t-shirts that 15 years ago we wouldn't have thought of, or we would not have been able to get because of funding. A committee that is actually committed to doing these wonderful symposiums and events. The Lewis Center, which focuses on our Latin American heritage. And it's interesting because when we've worked with vendors and things, we have to remind them, we're not all Mexican. Hispanic, Latino, that means a lot of different things. Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, we're not all the same. So it is such a joy to see all of the things that we're doing and accomplishing, being a true HSI and working hard on behalf of our first-gen students who are not all Hispanic, because we have students here from all over the world, but trying to be a stronger HSI for our students and providing programming and symposiums like this to give them, a little bit of a lift for the things that they want to do.
Does one more person want to go and answer that one?
So I think from like an alumni perspective of it, in continuing to encourage our alumni to give back through development and scholarships. And my partner, he recently signed to do an endowment for Hispanic students in the business school. So, but encouraging our alumni to do the same thing, even if it's not huge endowments, but just giving to our Hispanic scholarships and whatever areas they find, in the DEI realm or even within their schools. But the giving back component needs to be just continually encouraged.
Thank you. Well, will you all join me in thanking our panelists? And I also want to thank our audience for joining us and continuing to support us in celebrating Hispanic heritage. So thank you. Are there any questions for our panel?
Questions is the last segment of this beautiful symposium. And what you say, we're going to remember forever. So don't mess it up.
Forever. No pressure.
Good.
Okay.
I really believe in the value of getting higher degrees,
Mhm.
because I'm super proud of my PhD. And because it was hard for me to get, it was not an easy thing. Like I had to, for some people, I guess I don't know why, but it's easier. For me, it was really hard. I got it. I'm not afraid to say I'm proud of it. And it's really helped me because people see that PhD after your name, they think you're a smart person. And, so I'm going to play that card, I'm going to get the benefit of the doubt. So I believe it is really, really important to get, advanced degrees. And I think these statistics are really important. On the other hand, I also want to say, there's, in Spanish, in the Spanish that I learned, you talk about mal educado and educado, right? Badly educated and educated. But in Spanish, in the Spanish that I grew up speaking, that doesn't mean do you have a PhD or a master's degree or whatever. That's not what badly mal educado or educada or mal educada means. That means just how you were brought up and your upbringing. It means well brought up or not well brought up. It had nothing to do with degrees or higher education. It has a very clear meaning. And I want to say this, I'm not from San Antonio. I'm from the borderlands, northern Mexico, South Texas. But when I came to work in San Antonio, one of the things that, and I tell my wife all the time, I love San Antonio and I love UIW because it's gente educada. People in San Antonio and here at UIW, it's been one of the great blessings for me to be around people that have that. And I, when we talk about Hispanic heritage, like there's a lot of reasons. And it's not just because of Hispanics and Mexicanos here in San Antonio that people are educados. But I think it's a part of the reason. I think part of the reason that we are the way we are, I consider myself now San Antonense too, is because of the Hispanic heritage and because there's a certain way of a certain culture that I love, and it has nothing to do with advanced degrees. It has to do with the way you were brought up, with your family, with your, all these role models that you guys are talking about. And so I guess it's just another comment about, yes, higher education is so important, helped open so many doors and we got to get there. But also to recognize at the same time that there's this other education and this upbringing that we carry with us as Mexicanos, as Hispanics, that I think is really important. So I loved hearing this today. I mean, it's just a great way to end the symposium. I've because of our roles, Dell and I have seen every presentation, and just really terrific hearing your voices and hearing about your experiences, and really appreciate you putting it together.
All right. So once again, thank you, ladies, for being up here, sharing everything, sharing the vulnerability on your journey. And I know your journey continues and there's going to be still ups, there's going to be downs, but the fact that you're willing to share that has given us even a little bit more resilience in our journey, hearing from yours. You're giving people online a little bit more hope, giving people online a little bit more faith in what they're going to do. So continue doing what you're doing because you're inspiring individuals like myself, my daughter, and future generations as well. You're very needed. So thank you very much. For those of you online, thank you for being here, zooming in from Mexico, zooming in from your rooms. I know some of our people that work here are zooming in a couple offices away, but much appreciated. For those of you that have attended every session in person as well, we're truly, truly thankful for you. this is year one of this system-wide event. We always got to start somewhere, right? But we treat it as if one person in the room, 100 people in the room. You're just as valuable regardless of how many, because your voice matters, your experience matters, and it's validated, and we affirm it. So thank you for being that. We have a couple more days of Hispanic Heritage Month. We want you to look at the website that they worked so hard on. Look at, yeah, look at the website. Yep. Yeah. So he created a lot of, stand up. It's okay. Because this is a very bright future that you have, figuratively and literally. Seriously. So thank you for doing all this stuff and helping us out. For those of you drive safe if you're off campus. Those of you that are contributing to this mission, thank you. This mission is not done, but with you it's a much brighter tomorrow. So thank you once again for joining us. We appreciate you. There's going to be a presentation here at 2:30, so we're going to have to scurry a little bit out the room. Okay. Ah, good cop, bad cop we're playing here. I see that. Good cop, bad cop. I got you. Got you. Okay, yes. And this young woman, I for lack of better terms, kidnapped her from going to study, and she's been here at every session. And so, thank you so much for being here.
My name's Gabriella Luevano, and I just wanted to thank y'all because, like, I think hearing from y'all's stories as well has really helped me and inspired me even more. Because there are some days where I'm just like, do I really deserve to be here? You know? And then, like, just hearing about those statistics, I was like, no, I need to be here. I need to be here. And, you know, I guess I mainly only had like my mom to look up to since because she came to UIW as well. But it was just crazy relating also to because her parents as well, they couldn't complete their education because they were kicked out of school for speaking Spanish. But so, and I don't know, I just hearing from all of y'all is really inspiring, and I appreciate y'all so much. And thank y'all for sharing everything y'all have to share. Y'all are awesome. Thank you.
You're awesome.
What we can
Keep
do
going.
is make sure that as soon as we're done, go to them, get all their contact information if you don't mind sharing yours, because you have a very, very bright future and a good leader here right now. So thank you. Go ahead. Okay.
I wanted to share like what you're saying. I think I've experienced it too in different pathways of my career and as a student in my undergrad. I do remember being like you, going to an advisor, probably like Gloria, saying, I don't know if I can finish this. I don't know if I'm good enough. And someone helped me along the way. And even in the PhD program, you know, you think about, you know, you have some a lot of work experience. You've been in the industry. These are people that have full-time jobs, have families, and the first year you're like imposter syndrome. You're like, am I really, can I do this? I'm not sure. And so different pathways, you have to get through it and say, I do deserve, like you said, to be here. You know, I'm fight for it because it's your right, it's your education. So that's what I would say, you know.
One of the things that I remember about being in college, first of all, being from San Antonio and then going to the University of Texas, which is just larger than life, coming from Incarnate High School, where I had more people in my first class than were in my whole high school, including like the people that were in facilities. I did not realize when I started my degree that going into my junior year, you had to audition to finish. If I had known that at the beginning, probably wouldn't have done it. But I found out like too late. And they were like, oh, you're not quitting. You're fine. You'll be fine. But you've got to go and audition in a room like this with all these media professionals, all of your, not only just the faculty, but like reporters and anchors who are alumni. And you have to do the news. You have to audition to be able to go into the track. I literally thought I was going to throw up. I just was like, how did I get myself into this? And, you know, thankfully I wasn't first. I was probably halfway into it. But then you kind of get like, after the people started going through and feeling a little bit better about yourself. But that really was like my first really my first opportunity of that, like, oh God, I don't belong here. I'm not good enough for this. This is not gonna happen. And then you get that, at the time, a letter, because there was no email. So you gotta get a letter and you gotta open it up. And it was like, again, like starting college, like, we regret to inform you, or congratulations. And the regret to inform you was, you know, you're not getting in this program, so you're gonna have to do the print journalism. So it wasn't the end of the world, but it was that fear of that imposter, like, I do not belong here. What am I doing? What the heck did I think that I was getting myself into? I did not know. And I'm glad I didn't know, because I would not have done it. I would not have.
Let's thank everybody on the panel one more time. Thank you, Ms. Victoria, for moderating this panel. And let's give, because he's been saying thank you to everybody. Let's give a round of applause for the person that had the vision for Symposium, Dr. Rafael Hoya. Thank you very, very, very much for your efforts. Kids did want to make sure that that got ignored. All right, everybody, they're coming in. Y'all see it? Let's roll out.
Thank you.